Hello and welcome to the Ending Body Burnout Show. We are your hosts, Chris and Philly, co-founders of a multi-award-winning functional medicine practice, serving busy people with energy, mood, and gut issues.
While busyness, addictive doing, people-pleasing, and perfectionism might be the norm, it's not normal, and it's a major contributor to health issues.
Our goal with this show is to give you a holistic root cause approach to healing your body so that you don't have to continue doctor or diet hopping or popping a gazillion supplements hoping something might stick.
So get ready to heal your body, get your spark back, deeply connect with yourself, and step into the life of your dreams.
Let's dive in.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. I'm really excited to share our next guest with you, who is Dr. Shiromi Wimalaguna. Now, Dr. Shiromi is a GP who is really passionate about advocating for mental health. And I met Dr. Shiromi in a business group we're both part of. Straight away, when I met her, I felt really connected to her and her warm and bubbly nature. And I was also super impressed with her proactive steps to helping patients with mental health issues. For her, it's less about just slapping on an antidepressant on a script and instead really understanding the patient and his or her needs and providing lifestyle and skill set support to empower the patient. What I also love about Dr. Shiromi is that she's a really big advocate in patient-shared care. So she is all about let's build bridges and work together in the name of looking after our patients and getting them the best results possible. And so what I've found as a functional medicine practitioner, coach, holistic trauma therapist in more of the natural holistic space is that a lot of the people that come and work with us have had bad experiences with GPs. Not everyone and not every single GP. There's some wonderful, amazing, holistic, open-minded people out there working to get their patients the best results. But I really wanted Dr. Shiromi to come on because not only does she share a lot of great stuff around mental health and also helping you with some tools and resources to bridge the gap between a GP appointment and getting psychological help, whether that's with a standard psychologist or with someone like us, where we work more with the unconscious mind and somatics and the body to clear past distressing events and to help you build your capacity. But she provides some really great resources, so we dig into that. And I've also picked her brain on what it takes to find a really great GP. So this is great if you're someone who is struggling with mental health issues, which is a very common symptom when it comes to body burnout. We generally see energy, mood, gut issues. Mood can show up as anxiety, depression, abnormal stress response, irritability, mood swings, anger, rage. So this will be really relevant for you. But also too, if you're interested in hearing what Dr. Shiromi calls herself a standard GP, and to be able to get a new narrative that GPs can be really helpful and really important in your overall care. At some point, you will need to see a GP, whether it's to get some blood work done, just to check in on, making sure that you're healthy and still functioning as you're aging. Or maybe there will be a crisis and emergency where you will need some standard medical support. And so we do dig into what it takes to find a really great GP. So I think you'll get a lot of value out of that too. All right, awesome. So let's dig into today's conversation. Welcome everyone to the podcast today. I'm very excited for our special guest interview with Dr. Shiromi. We know each other through a business program that we're both in, and I think we might have joined at the same time, her Empire Builder. Yeah, that was back in September.
Yeah.
And I just as soon as she popped up, I'm like, she's so lovely. I really want to get to know her. And then we met in person at a conference this year, and it was really lovely to just connect. And what I love about you is that you're, like a standard GP, but very open to a holistic approach, a shared care approach, which a lot of people need these days.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Philly. It's such a joy to be here. And yeah, I'm really excited to have a chat because I think we're very aligned when it comes to looking after our patients and our clients from a really holistic point of view and from a really patient-centered view. And yeah, I am a conventional GP, your standard GP in terms of the way that I practice. But I think it's really important for all of us in the medical field to have a really open policy when it comes to seeing patients and putting their needs first. Because at the end of the day, whether it's you or me or any other clinician, we're working to get our patients better. And if you want to see a GP for conventional medicine and you want to also see a functional practitioner, then it's my job to facilitate that and to do all I can to be able to work with a team of people to make sure that you get better. That's the end goal for everybody. So creating that open line of communication, the worst thing in the world would be for my patients to maybe not feel comfortable enough to tell me that they're taking XYZ along with their medication or feel judged. That's a terrible place to be. And at the end of the day, someone is doing that stuff because they want to get better, whether they're seeing me or you, and it's our job to work together to ensure that they're safe and that they get well. So yeah, it's a
Mm.
pleasure to be here and to have a chat.
Mm, I love that. And we'll dig into how someone can find a good GP at the end. But something that I've had some clients say to me, I'm like, okay, great. Yeah, you got your blood test results back from your GP. How was the visit? Um, and there's some clients who don't share anything that they're doing from a natural perspective. And it's like misguided. It's really hard. It's really hard to help the patient or the
Yeah.
client when you only have part of the picture of what they're doing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's holes that it can lead to a dangerous situation, to be honest, because whether it's natural or medical in inverted commas or whatever it is,
Mm.
things can interact, and there's information that's important when we make medical decisions. So yeah, we really need to work hard to keep those open lines of communication.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So as a GP, like GP's general practitioner, so straddling a lot of areas, but you're really passionate most specifically on mental health. Why did you choose that?
That is a really good question. I was reflecting on it this morning, actually, because, yeah, you're right. I mean, GP, we see everything. We see everything from sore backs to knees to migraines to babies to older people to mental health and everything in between. So back when I was doing medicine in med school, I went to Monash. I realized I need to do a profession where I connect with people and share stories and learn about them and get those personal insights, because that is part of the reason why I love medicine. So that ruled out, pathology, sitting in a lab, or radiology, looking at bones on an X-ray. And then I really love continuity of care. So I love being able to see someone over a period of time and get to know their story and get to meet their family and get that really sort of, that continuous, the ups and downs of life and how they travel. It's such a beautiful part of medicine that I didn't want to miss out on, which you do when you do like emergency medicine, for instance, where you
Mm.
see someone come into the emergency department and then they disappear off to surgery or to the wards and you don't know what happened to them. So, that ruled out a few things. And then from a personal well-being point of view, I'm someone that needs my sleep to be, a happy, vibrant person. And,
Same.
yeah, there you go. It's important to identify these things. And I love delivering babies. And if babies were born 9 to 5, maybe I would have done that, but they're not. And I'm not someone who functions well on night shifts and all of that. So that crossed off surgery and obstetrics and a few things here and there. And so general practice and mental health, and I've done a bit of inpatient mental health at the Alfred Hospital, were the things that I really enjoyed. So delved into that further. And within GP land, doing early intervention mental health, I absolutely love. So that's seeing someone when the cracks are first appearing to get them back on track. And I love it because at the end of the day, mental well-being permeates into every aspect of our lives. It permeates into relationships, into work, into our sense of self. So when someone comes in and they're not feeling great and their job is, they're up for performance review and their marriage is on the rocks and they're, not feeling so great. And we do the things, we put in the work with the lifestyle change and the psychology and all of that, and we get them better. It is amazing to see, like even in 3 to 6 months, to see them reconnect with their family, to, go out and play footy with their kids and to feel happy about life and go on date night on Fridays, and you see them just to smile and that they're living their best life. There is nothing better as a clinician. So that is why I love mental health, because the impact and the change that we can make is huge.
It really plays a role too in the physical health as well. Sometimes a chicken or the egg, where does it start? It doesn't really matter, but it becomes this perpetuating cycle, especially I see with health anxiety is a huge one.
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Now, this is a crazy statistic. 54% of people with a mental illness do not seek any treatment.
Yeah.
That's huge. I pulled that off your website, by the way.
Yeah. No, it is a huge, and it's a scary statistic, isn't it? That means for everyone I see in my rooms, there's probably someone at home that's feeling too overwhelmed or apprehensive to come in, which is super scary and part of the reason why we developed the program. But, stigma plays a huge role in that, and the way that, I think we've come far in terms of where things used to be and where they are, but we still have a lot to go in terms of framing mental illness as the medical condition for which it is. I think it's still seen as a condition where you just have to pull your socks up and manage it yourself to some degree. And it's why we tend to see people further along down the track when they're at crisis point, as opposed to seeing people in the early stages when it's probably easier to pull someone out of a hole when I can reach their hand, right? As opposed to when they're in a deep hole and they've been in it for months or years, and I've got to pull out the ladders and the pulleys. I can still pull you out, but it's just a bit harder. So I think that stigma plays a really big role in creating an environment where people can come in sooner rather than later.
Where do you think the stigma has come from?
I think it's long-standing. I think there's stigma from an individual point of view, and I think there's stigma from a cultural point of view, and from a society point of view as well. It takes a lot to restructure that. And I think we've had a lot of campaigns and awareness now that people acknowledge that people might need to take a sick day for mental health, which is amazing. But people often still come in with a lot of guilt when they come in to see me for their mental well-being. And people will often say to me, oh, it's probably nothing but yada, yada, which they don't do with any other medical condition. They don't come in that about their abdominal pain if they've got appendicitis. No one feels guilty for having, endometriosis or appendicitis or asthma or diabetes. It's a case of, here are my symptoms, can you help me get better? But with mental health, it's this that people come in with this disclaimer of, I should have probably done this, or I should have done that, I haven't done this right, So it's something we really need to work hard. And sometimes people don't feel comfortable discussing it in the first appointment. And it takes time and rapport to build up an environment as a clinician where someone feels open that they can discuss these things, and they don't feel like they're going to be judged, or feel like a failure for the fact that they are where they are. No one chooses to have depression or anxiety, right? No one chooses to be in that situation. And if there was a quick fix and you could do it, you probably would have already done it. So by the time people come to see us, they need to feel validated and, congratulated for taking that brave and courageous step to seek help in the first place.
Yeah, that's so interesting. As you were talking, I was reflecting back on my own experience with depression and anxiety. After my first baby, it was more depression, like very shut down. I think I am pretty sure I did, like, there was a pamphlet for postnatal depression, and I didn't tick enough boxes to say like you're in full on postnatal depression. But reflecting back, because when I did the like the GP appointments post having a baby, like, just all the standard things, I never brought up anything around my mental health, even though I knew that I wasn't coping, but also I didn't even have a name. Like I couldn't even say back in that point in time that I had depression or anxiety. I can look back now and say I clearly did.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of it too was embarrassment. It's kind of like, and I was putting my older sisters on a pedestal that, they're like baby makers and they push out the babies and they're fun and they have like heaps of kids and they're like so successful. Whereas I was literally like struggling to even go to the toilet,
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of embarrassment. And it's interesting that I went into natural health, like looking into healing my body from a natural medicine point of view, because I actually probably didn't give my GP the whole story.
Yeah. Look, I think it's a two-way street. I think there's those factors of maybe not opening up and the first occasion giving us a full picture. But sometimes people do have situations where they're gaslit or they're dismissed, and that's not great. It breaks my heart when I hear stories of that because, like we said before, it takes so much courage to come in and to finally admit that you are struggling
Mm,
because it can be tied to our personal identity and our sense of success and being a great mum, all these sort of things that we
mm,
really value. So it's so important that we as clinicians ask the right questions and create an environment where someone is welcome to bring up those topics without feeling the embarrassment and feel like we can, work together to get you better.
mm. Do you think it's an Australian cultural thing as well? Like, she'll be right, mate, pull up your socks, in comparison to, say, like, I've listened to other prackies in USA, for example, and I feel like a lot of people are a lot more open to talking about their issues and seeking help. Do you find that it's like the Australian culture, that's part of the stigma?
Yeah, totally. It's that
Yeah.
stoic kind of attitude of
Yeah.
should be right, just get on with the job, pull your socks up, all that kind of stuff that plays
Yeah.
into it. Yeah, it's interesting when we look at the cultural differences because there are other cultures, maybe they don't have that issue, but maybe people who have come from immigrant backgrounds where their parents have been through civil wars and such like that, they don't feel that they can bring it up because they haven't gone through a civil war. Like it's not
Mm,
severe enough to discuss because they have this thought in their head that, oh, well, my parents went through a lot worse in life. So what am I complaining about having to deal with this and this? And there's this guilt associated with that.
mm,
So different cultures most certainly play a role in terms of, creating an environment of open disclosure. And I
mm.
think that's part of the reason that we need to sort of think about a stepping stone resource between having symptoms and seeing the GP, because it's a really big leap
Yeah.
and help people in getting the ball rolling with doing their own things and building the confidence to be able to come in and openly talk to us about their mental health and well-being.
Yeah. So how do we start breaking this silence and stigma, both from a practitioner point of view, but like a lot of our listeners are health seekers as well? The things that they can do too.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone plays a role with this. Absolutely everyone, whether you're a medical practitioner or you're a parent or whether you're a work colleague, we've really got to start to change the culture and be open about having these discussions about mental health and well-being in a really open forum without the judgment and validating people. I think sometimes when someone says that they're struggling with their mental health, people can get a bit nervous and say, "Oh yeah, I struggle with that too," or and be really dismissive because it can feel like an uncomfortable conversation. "Oh yeah, I get a bit of OCD as well," and yeah, I remember when I was down, and it sort of just lets the conversation, it pushes it onto something else rather than sitting down and asking questions and asking someone, "Oh really? Like that sounds awful," and tell me more and how are you managing that and creating an environment where we don't just try and push it aside, I think is really important to connect and to talk. I think, in today's society, it's really hard with Uber Eats and Netflix and meetings via Zoom and everything like that. We often don't have that social connection like we used to. So I think it's a really important, thing to really encourage people to get professional help when they do so that say that they are struggling rather than just offering a bit of ad hoc advice or for them to, they'll be right kind of attitude.
Mm. I've been working as a parent to create better beliefs for my children around this, because like when we talk about stigma and culture, I mean, it all gets programmed into us when we're little, really. It's like, stop crying, stop having a tantrum, dry your tears, go to your room until you've calmed down, and then you can come out when you're happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, like, I still catch myself. But yesterday, my daughter, I can't even remember what the issue was, but she was very upset, very upset. And my first like trigger response was before it came out of my mouth, I stopped it. But it's like, stop crying, stop
Yeah.
crying. Whereas I've really been retraining that first initial response of like, it's actually okay to be sad and like let out your tears.
Yeah.
Let out your
Validate.
tears, feel the
Yeah.
thing, and mummy's here and holding you and ready to talk when you're ready to talk about it. And
Beautiful.
it's
Yeah.
crazy how quickly that actually clears her emotions.
Yeah.
Like, rather than stop crying, you'll be right. It's okay. That's your friends do like you.
Yeah, absolutely. Providing that reinforcement and that positive reframe and validation and all of that. It's hard. It's hard to do that because we're all conditioned. We're all, as even as parents, we're conditioned to get on with the job, right? We want
Yeah.
that instill resilience, but there's a way to do it that ensures that, if your daughter were to ever struggle down the track, that she can have an open conversation with you about those worries and concerns rather than feeling like she needs to just bottle them up and keep them in.
Yeah. Yeah. So in our practice, we work with a lot of busy, burnt out people, and often these people are running patterns like overworking, overdoing, overachieving, perfectionism, people pleasing.
Yeah.
In your time as a GP, like, do you see a common link with people running these strong patterns and mental illness?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. So we talk about intrinsic factors and extrinsic factors when we talk about mental health and well-being. So the factors that are you factors and the outside factors. And so most certainly certain personality types we know are predisposed to having depression and anxiety, that personality A sort of traits of being really busy and doing everything and perfectionism and all of that can play a role. And then from a work point of view, working in high stress environments, and that can also play a role. So yeah, most certainly there is a correlation, and we need to acknowledge that and encourage those people within those environments to really seek out professional help if they are struggling and not feel like they need to fix everything themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. So functional medicine at its crux is really preventative medicine. I mean, a lot of people use it now as I'm actually sick now, I need your help. But
Yeah.
initially it was first designed to say, hey, what if we could actually look at the way that your system is functioning and recorrect imbalances before they actually eventuate into symptoms. Um, so that's what I love. Like, one of the things I love about your approach as a GP and with mental health is that you talk about taking a proactive approach rather than reactive. Can you talk about, like, first of all, what both of those look like? So reactive versus proactive approach.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, it's really important that we take a proactive approach. That means effectively doing the things before we hit crisis point, right? And reaction is sorting things out when we hit crisis point. So if we sort of give the example of you going to the gym, a lot of us go to the gym or partake in physical exercise for our health and well-being. We're not doing it necessarily because we've had a heart attack or a stroke, but we're doing it to prevent a heart attack or a stroke. And we go to the gym and we understand that, doing cardio and weights and all of that will prevent us from having long-term physical complications and physical health issues. And so we do it. We need to take the same approach when it comes to mental health and well-being, rather than waiting for things to, be at crisis point for us to be having thoughts of suicidal ideation, feeling hopeless and detached from everyone. We need to get in early and to be doing the things when we're perfectly well to stay perfectly well moving forward. And that's a lot of what our course is about as well, getting in at the early stages and helping you create a framework for now and for down the track as well, to ensure that you stay well throughout the course of depression or anxiety, and you've got the skills to be able to implement when you do see the cracks. So things like evidence-based lifestyle change, psychological strategies, social connection, like we spoke about before, these are all things that we can do at any point, to ensure that we are keeping mentally well for the future.
Can you elaborate a bit on some of those things? Like, what does that actually look like?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's hard to sometimes frame it because it can feel like a lot and it can feel really overwhelming, I think, when we say do all the things.
Mm.
Consult one of our program, we go through addressing stigma, and we go through the diagnostic medical workup, and then we go through lifestyle change, which is really important. So we evidence-based lifestyle change through diet, exercise, and sleep. So we've done lots and lots and lots of studies in medicine, and we know that having a whole foods Mediterranean sort of diet, or washuku sort of diet in Japan, that unprocessed foods diet, does improve mental health and well-being. It does reduce symptoms of depression and anxiety. It's well proven and documented. So we talk to patients about being able to implement that in a really practical, step-by-step way. From a sleep hygiene point of view, we've got the evidence, but most people know themselves, if they don't get a good night's rest or if they're sleep deprived, that can impact mood. So we talk about sleep hygiene and exercise, we spoke about before. So partaking in exercise for physical health, but also for mental health and well-being. Psychological strategies are really important in terms of, understanding yourself and your worries and being able to identify them. So we talk about that in consult 2 of the program. And consult 3 is social connection, which is a really big one that I think we often leave out. And it's becoming a really big issue moving forward with today's day and age of all the stuff and the computers and the disengagement through like we said before, through meal delivery services and TV and all of that sort of thing. So creating an environment where you socially connect with people and you have contact with people where you can have these discussions and vent about your worries and concerns and not feel like you're carrying the mental load of everything yourself. So you're connecting with, whether it be mother's group or connecting with people at work beyond the work environment to ask them about their weekend and things like that. So, we've really got to work hard to be able to identify what we need to do and to do it well before we hit crisis point, because it's a lot to take on at a vulnerable situation to then go, oh, okay, now you have to make friends and now you have to eat healthy and you have to exercise. It's like when someone comes in to see us after a heart attack, it can feel really overwhelming, all the lifestyle change that we ask them to make. So if we can start making small changes now, and that's the key, is not to get overwhelmed and to take it one step at a time and make small little changes that then build up to a more healthy lifestyle overall.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of the stuff that people know they should be doing, but not a lot of people do until they hit that like, oh, pain signals are on.
Yeah,
Crap. Maybe I should be doing those things that I
yeah.
know can help me. Um, and it's interesting too. Like I've got so much to say about that because I'm curious. Why do you feel like people know what they should be doing, but they're not doing it?
Because of time and because of life in general, there is so much to deal with these days and so much from a coping point of view that people feel the overwhelm really quickly. It's the reason why lifestyle change is the hard option, right? You
Mm.
just almost want a quick fix. And the truth of the matter is, there is no quick fix. And I am really upfront about that, even with our program, that, we've condensed it to effectively people can do it within 3 days with an hour commitment. And I, sat down before I created the program and just condensed everything as much as I could, because people are so poor on time and they don't want the fluff. They just want the actionable steps.
Mm.
And also when we look at lifestyle, like I was saying before, people sometimes review it and think, oh, getting takeout for my lunch at work and I'm not sleeping, I've got work commitments and I've got to look after the kids and I've got no time, but how on earth am I meant to? And then it gets pushed aside,
Mm.
as opposed to going, okay, all of that is going on and it's maybe not great, but I'm going to make one change this week. I'm going to meal prep on Sunday for my lunch. And I'm going to make a healthy lunch and pop it in the fridge in a Tupperware container so that I don't have to go out and buy the unhealthy processed food at lunch. And that's one step. And then just doing that week. And then the week after going, okay, now I've kind of got into the routine of doing that. I'm going to focus on making sure that I drink enough water this week because I don't do that and do that. And then the third week going, you know what, I might get off the bus or the tram and stop earlier and walk a few hundred meters to work, just so I get some incidental exercise. And if you keep it that over a few months, before you know it, you've dramatically changed and turned things around. So I think it's about the overwhelm and not letting it get to you and just coming up with small strategies to get the ball rolling.
Mm. We talk about 1% better every day, or do
Yeah,
the minimum to get the maximum results, or be the maximum.
yeah,
Um, and I think that that's like, again, going back to busy, burnt out people running, especially perfectionism patterns, is that I feel like that's where people fall off as well. They feel like, in order for me to get the result or to even prevent this thing from happening, I have to have all the bits and pieces in place and I have to do it perfectly. Otherwise, it's not going to work, which is not the case. You can actually do the minimum and get really great results. And
yeah,
then, like, as you said, like just habit stacking
yeah,
over time so that then it less overwhelm, but it also becomes part of who you are when you're able to do it incrementally, as
yeah.
opposed to far out. Oh, I'm trying to do all of this and I've failed, so I may as well not do it at all.
Yeah, and also just acknowledging the small wins when you do
Mm.
manage to do the small things. I think from a perfectionist point of view, sometimes we only acknowledge the really big achievements and forget to acknowledge the small wins in terms of, whether it means that you did a bit of incidental exercise or you went out to kick the footy with your kids on the weekend and just going, oh, like I made the time to socially connect and to exercise and to do this and take the dog for a walk. Like little things like that, actually acknowledging them rather than pushing them aside as a non-event.
Yeah, we talk a lot about the unconscious mind too, when it comes to healing. And this is interesting. The unconscious mind doesn't know the difference between a small win and a big win.
Yeah.
So, like maybe cognitively, consciously you do, but your unconscious mind is like this little baby that, you can really actually have so much power to create and to shift baggage from the unconscious state. But I love that. So, even for myself, when it's like a small win or like, something, a goal that I'm working towards, whether it's health or business or whatever, when it's small, I'm like, This is so like I get as excited
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
if it was like a big milestone win
Yeah.
because I know that my whole body doesn't know the difference. And so it's going to be like create that momentum and movement forwards.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, to be honest, as a GP, that's why that review appointment at the 3 to 6 month period with my patients is, for me, one of my favorite appointments, because we get to go through and we do the questionnaires again and we have a bit of a chat, and you see the, like, quantitatively, you see the symptom reduction from people taking very simple measures like exercise and some changes in diet and sleep hygiene. And you see, like, and you have a chat and you show the patient, you go, look, like, you have made these changes and you put in the work and here's the impact. And then you get this beautiful positive reinforcement where people go, oh, because I did that, this is now the situation. And then that motivates them to keep going. And so it's this beautiful cycle. And that's why I'm so passionate about early intervention mental health, because when we get in there with the small things, the impact we have is tenfold.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so good.
Yeah.
Okay. Juicy question. Because I know that this is a question I get from clients all the time, especially more local ones because, there's a network there. But like, how can I find a good GP or a great GP? And that's something that you love talking about as well. And some people have had bad experiences in the past where they haven't been able to share their whole story or, they've been gaslit or whatever,
Yeah.
which isn't helpful for them and for their long-term wellness and well-being because it is important to have a GP in your corner.
Yeah.
So what should people be looking for when they're finding a GP? Like a
Yeah.
great GP. They're questions that they could be asking, whether it's even like the secretary, the admin, or what should they be searching on Google?
Yeah. Yeah, really good question. And first of all, just to validate that, because I remember hearing that a lot when I started junior training as a GP, people saying, oh, it's taken me so long to find a GP. You're not going on mat leave or on holidays, are you? And I wouldn't get it because I was working with amazing clinicians. And myself, to be honest, I didn't have a regular GP until I had my little one. And then I realized, oh, I probably need to get organized now. And some chronic health stuff came up. And it took me as a clinician, as a GP, it took me 3 goes to find my GP. And that's someone who knows the system in and out, who has contacts. And it's not necessarily because the other GPs weren't good or weren't knowledgeable, because it's a lot more than the credentials on our wall when it comes to finding a great GP. It's a really unique relationship, isn't it? Because we need someone who's thorough and comprehensive, someone who listens, someone who doesn't judge. We need someone who we can have a cry with and not feel like a failure. And we need someone to prep us up and motivate us, someone to call us out when we're being a slacker, someone, it's to have that communication with. And I think it's really important that if you have had a bad experience, to keep going in trying to find someone. And I know that's hard and that shouldn't be the case. And it honestly breaks my heart when I hear that story, especially with mental health, because it takes so much courage to come in and to work yourself to a point where you can come in and be open with what you're struggling with. So to hear that people have had a negative experience is just a gut punch for that person at that point in time. But persist with it, because yeah, when you do find a great GP, it's worth its weight in gold, because for my regular patients, when they come in, I know whether they're well or not within milliseconds of them sitting down, just by their body language and the way that they present. And, it's so much easier for me to be straight with them and to be upfront with them and to really question them. In terms of how to find a great GP, it's just be aware that it may take more than one shot. I think that's the first thing to acknowledge. Then think about what you need as a person. What sort of personality do you want? Do you want someone that's, got a young, fresh approach and it's, really black and white in the way that they communicate? Do you want someone that's more soft and nurturing? What sort of personality is going to gel with you in the way that you want information presented, and a way in which you can be open and vulnerable as well? So think about the things that you need. Most certainly, you mentioned speaking to reception. That's one of the most untapped resources that is a great resource when it comes to you being able to find a great GP, because our receptionists know us really well. They know us, they have lunch with us, they know our personality types, they know our special interests, which is another thing to bring up, most certainly special interests. So I love mental health, and so I will do extra training and go to more conferences, and I'm really passionate about that area of medicine. So if that's your gig, then come and see me for that. There are most certainly GPs that specialize in other areas. But speak to receptionists and just say, I want someone with this sort of an approach, who maybe has a special interest in this. Who would you recommend? That is a great, great tip. Speaking to friends and family is also really good because chances are if your bestie vibes with me, you're probably going to vibe with me as well. So have a chat to friends and try and find a great GP in that sort of a sense. Google reviews and Facebook, yeah, yes, look at them for sure, but just be aware that sometimes if someone didn't get exactly what they wanted, they can go on a bit of a rant and it can be a little bit tricky to figure that out, but most certainly review that and have a look. And I think the point is go in and see someone and suss them out, right? That's another big thing. Often when it comes to depression and anxiety, by the time that hits, you are in a really vulnerable state. And we want you to find a great GP before that state if we can, because that way, at least when you walk in, you know that the person you're seeing is a good egg. They're not going to judge you, they're going to listen. So you kind of have to try and put in the hard work before you get unwell. So it might mean that you're going in for a flu shot, or you're going in to have your regular pap smear or cycle smear now, or you're going in to get the kids reviewed for their ears or whatever. And I reckon from a 5-minute consult, you will get a sense of that person and whether you feel like they are a great GP for you to see in the long term. So the key there is to not wait for the crisis situation, but again, proaction, and try and find someone that's going to connect with you well before you get sick. Also look at things like convenience, because that's really important. When we talk about preventative health and proaction, we're going to ask my patients every time they see me for mental health, we organise a follow-up appointment because it's a chronic health condition. It's no different to diabetes or asthma. And I see those patients every 3 to 6 months. And I will say, yep, great, we'll see you in 6 months' time. And here's our plan of action. And obviously come in early if you need to. But if you live quite far out to where my practice is, or if the hours are tricky and you need to see me after work and I close shop at 3 or whatever it is, that's not going to work. So find a clinic that, pathology on site is important, or it has after hours or weekend accessibility. Think about all those things from a practical point of view and find a clinician that you can see without too much trouble, because you might see them acutely when you're unwell, but when it comes to preventative health in the long term, we've got to make it easy.
I know that listeners are probably like loving you, and they will have 2 questions. One, are you accepting clients or patients? Sorry.
Yeah.
And also, do you do telehealth like as a GP?
Yeah, look, really good question. I have moved out of the office gig when it comes to GP, unfortunately, to create our online program. The good part of that, your question, my answer to that is that I am the one that presents my online course. And, I'm a really passionate GP when it comes to mental health and wellbeing. And the reason that I've moved to the online space that's self-directed and done the course with me speaking to camera is that I am so passionate about this area of medicine and of wellbeing and health. And when I was sitting in my office, I could only see 20 patients a day. And that's not very many in the big scheme of things, especially when we pulled up the stat that we did before about how many people are not coming in. So you do get me on the online program, which makes me accessible. But yeah, do most certainly. And you can use our online program while you're waiting to find someone, because it can take time. It can take a few weeks, sometimes months, to find the right click. And then use us as an adjunct to seeing a GP. It's also really hard for GPs now to have that focus on holistic primary care prevention because of the cost of living and resource allocation, all that sort of thing. Often when people come to see us, they're coming in with a shopping list of ailments that they want sorted out. And so back in the day when we used to sit there and be able to spend time to talk to our patients about their exercise and their proactive mental health wellbeing plan and all of that sort of stuff, we don't do anymore. It's migraine to elbow pain to rash to flu shot to breast exam, okay, next. And so there's no time to have these discussions. And then cost of living, people, it is expensive to see a GP or a psychologist now as well. So people want their bang for their buck when it comes to healthcare, which I get, but then it means that the bit that drops off is actually one of the most important parts, which is this preventative health aspect, which that's our stuff as GPs. That's the stuff, the preventative care, frontline health is what makes our job have such a big impact. And, a lot of funding, even from a government point of view, is cutting down on preventative health. And that's not the way to work, because down the track, it will catch up. You will go into hospital down the track if we don't do the stuff now. So it's so important for you to prioritise those preventative health measures early on.
I love that too. Like that's why we sort of stepped away from just like a paper consult, big piece of paper, do all the things. A lot of people need more education, more support, more knowledge. And so when you can put that into the course that you've created for the Bridge for Mental Health, like imagine sharing that amount of information in a 10-minute GP, that would take probably a whole year kind of
It
thing.
would, absolutely. It's just not practical, is it? And I think it's really important to acknowledge that it's an adjunct care of model. So my online course doesn't replace the need to have one-to-one care, because at the end of the day, I'm very big on this in the course, and we speak about it as well, that I say that we aren't treating depression or anxiety. We are treating you, the person. We aren't treating conditions. So most certainly there is a lot of information you need to know, and we provide all of that in our online self-directed course, but that doesn't negate the impact of one-to-one psychological care and people sitting down and talking to you about what's going on with your life, what are your stresses, who do you live with, and all of that sort of thing. That one-to-one care is really important. But if we can teach you all the stuff you need to know beforehand in terms of the generic lifestyle advice and the psychological strategies and social connection, it means that when you do go to see the psychologist for the one-to-one care, you've done all the groundwork. Your foundations are set, and it's beautiful to hear feedback from psychologists to say that this patient is doing so well because they've done the hard foundational work, and it's a holistic model of care. So now they're getting better much, much quicker than a patient who maybe didn't do our program and doesn't have a good understanding of their condition and isn't informed and engaged in doing the lifestyle change, for instance, and understanding what psychotherapy is. I've seen previously when I was working in clinics, I would see patients who were maybe referred to a psychologist by another GP and done a review on them, and they stopped going. And I've gone, oh, why did you stop seeing the psychologist? And they went, oh, because the psychologist was asking me questions about my parents' divorce, and I didn't want to talk about that. I wanted to talk about, my current work stress. And I've gone, bugger, someone hasn't explained.
It's the dots.
Totally, right? And that's a part of our job in GP land, is to prime and prep you so you understand what cognitive behavioral therapy is and what psychological practice is, and that the way that we view the world and our early childhood experiences frame how we see the view, how we view the world and our approaches. And it's important to identify that to help reframe and yada yada yada. So once this patient understood that, they were able to go back and engage in therapy and understand the process. That's a key step that was missed, and
Yeah.
that led to someone falling off the wagon. And luckily that they came in to see me, but maybe that another person wouldn't come back in to see anyone and would then struggle and feel really unwell until they were crisis point. So I think we need to come up with innovative new models of care that provide information on online self-directed learning platform, and then allows the time for GPs, because they've done that work, the patient, to turn around away from the computer and look at the person and connect and talk to them and hear their concerns and worries.
That's so true. As you're talking, I'm like, I find that, like, if a new client has maybe binged on some of our podcasts or read my book, or, whether it's ours or someone else's, but they kind of get what it takes to holistically heal.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, they are like so ready to get amazing results, and quite fast as well.
Yeah.
As opposed to someone who, I don't know, maybe got recommended by a friend. They're like, they solved my issues, go see them. And then they come and they're like so unaware of how all the dots connect to actually be able to heal yourself.
Sure.
Still can 100% get results, but there's so much that you can do even before investing in a one-on-one appointment with someone, where your results can just be amplified as opposed to previous.
Absolutely. And that's saving time and money at the end of the day as well, isn't it? Like, you don't need to have many appointments. And, we talk about the cost of healthcare and the cost of well-being, but we often miss talking about, the cost of not. Sick days and reduced work productivity and all of that comes at a cost as well. So we really need to prioritize our mental health and well-being.
Yeah. Love it. Thank you so much for sharing so generously. If anyone listening wants to find out more about your course, the Cloud GP, sorry,
All right.
and mental health, or to connect with you, how can people find you?
Yeah, of course. So our course is available online. It's self-directed at www.thecloudgp.com.au. So you can pop on there and check out everything that we cover and sign up. You don't need a referral or Medicare. And so, yeah, we'd love to see you. And we've got a heap of free resources on there as well to help you prepare for GP appointments and psychology sessions, and also to figure out whether or not you are struggling with depression or anxiety, or maybe you're having a bad day or a bad week, because that can be really tricky as well. And if not, we're on Instagram at the Cloud GP.
Awesome. So good. Well, thank you so much. It was lovely having you on.
Thanks so much, Philly. You have a lovely day.
Thanks. Thank you so much for listening. We so appreciate you. If you'd like to give us extra smiles, drop us a review and spread the love by sharing this episode.
You can also rate your own state of burnout and the root cause contributors by taking our Ending Body Burnout Assessment on our website. And if you're interested in learning about our group or one-on-one Ending Body Burnout programs, shoot us a DM via Instagram or Facebook.
Have the best day ever.